Yo, what's up guys? It's Noah here, and in today's video, we're going to be breaking down the NBA slate on Draftkings and Yahoo for Tuesday, April the 6th. We got an 8-game slate for Tuesday. As always, we're going to go team by team, go through each game and talk about each team on this 8-game slate. I'll give you guys my early thoughts, what does stand out to me looking at this slate on Monday night, looking at this slate the night before. But before we do get started with the breakdown, guys, as always, I would appreciate it if you would hit that like button down below. And if you are new to the channel here, be sure to click that subscribe button as well. A lot of you that watch my videos, it's like 60% of you that watch my videos are not subscribed. So please be sure to hit that subscribe button. It's free, doesn't cost you anything. You'll see all my videos pop up, on your YouTube page whenever you log into YouTube. It's very beneficial if you are someone that wants to, continuously watch my videos. So hit that subscribe button. Also, be sure to click the notification bell so that way you do get notified every time I upload, and you also do get notified every time I go live, every time I do live stream. Now, lately I haven't been able to stream, over these last few days, but I do for 100%, I do plan on being back Tuesday afternoon for a live stream. I thought I was going to be able to stream Monday, but I had some things come up I was not able to. Definitely will be back for Tuesday's slate, so check out my YouTube channel around 4 Eastern for the live stream. We'll be talking through the slate, once again with you guys, answering all your questions in the live stream. But yeah, let's go ahead and take a look at Tuesday's slate. We'll start off with the Bulls and Pacers game. So right now, this is a game that I have some interest in just due to the fact that there's some potential injuries here. Now on the Bulls side, there really isn't much to talk about on Chicago. I don't like too much on the Bulls today. Zach LaVine's back. Kobe White's probable. He's expected to play. Only impactful injury that's even, I don't even want to say it's impactful, but Daniel Tice is out. I don't think that really changes anything at all. So on the Bulls here, with them basically fully healthy, the only guy I think I have interest in today is Zach LaVine, just because his price on DraftKings, it's come down a good amount. I mean, he's down to 7,800. Like, I can't tell you the last time we saw Zach LaVine below 8K. Now, obviously, with Vooch on the team now, Vooch is definitely, it seems like Vooch is taking away usage and opportunity for LaVine. LaVine really hasn't been as productive. I mean, just like his last, over his last 5 games, he hasn't hit more than 50 fantasy points in 8 straight games. He's been pretty bad. Like, he hasn't really been a guy you've wanted to play. If you've been playing LaVine lately, it probably hasn't been going well. But the price is coming down to a point where I think, he is pretty appealing at 7,800. If I had to play anyone on Chicago today, I think it would be Zach LaVine. But overall, this is not a team I really expect to have much exposure to. I think most of my interest in this game is coming on the Pacers side, mainly due to the fact that Domantas Sabonis and Malcolm Brogdon, who have been out lately, they're both questionable for today. Sabonis listed as questionable. Brogdon, I believe, was able to practice. He's listed as questionable, though. So I think if Sabonis and Brogdon both play, there really isn't much I like from Indiana outside of Sabonis. I think he'd be the one guy I would consider. If Sabonis is in, I do like this matchup a lot for him against the Bulls. This is definitely a Bulls team you can beat down low with bigs. They do have Vooch now, which is going to make their defense down low a little bit better. But still, Sabonis should be able to have success in this matchup. He's done well against the Bulls this year through 2 games against them, averaging nearly 54 DK points. I do have interest in him for sure if he plays. If he's out, though, and if Malcolm Brogdon's out, then we can basically go back to the guys that, we've been playing lately. Miles Turner, I liked a lot on Saturday's slate with Sabonis out. He had a pretty good game. He didn't smash or anything, but he had 35 DK points in 38 minutes. I would definitely have interest in Turner again if Sabonis were to be out again. He would probably be my favorite play overall from the Pacers. And then if Brogdon's out, I think that really does benefit Karis LeVert. He had a huge game last game with Brogdon and Sabonis both out. Played 38 minutes, had 51 DK points. The two biggest beneficiaries, if Sabonis and Brogdon are out, are definitely LeVert and Turner. TJ McConnell also does benefit, and you could definitely look to TJ McConnell. He did play 34 minutes off the bench, had 38 DK points. He'd also be interesting. So for me, when it comes to this Pacers team, it's pretty much just a wait and see. We got to wait and see if Sabonis and Brogdon play. If they both play, really the only guy I'm considering on the Pacers is Sabonis, but if they're both out again, love LeVert, love Miles Turner, love TJ McConnell. All 3 of those guys I'd have a lot of interest in. But moving on to the next game, New Orleans and Atlanta. So this is another game specifically on the New Orleans side where we have some big injuries to watch. Zion Williamson and Brandon Ingram, I believe, have both been out for like the last 3 games or so. They're both listed as questionable for today. We do know that Nickeil Alexander-Walker is going to be out, though. Josh Hart going to be out. Steven Adams is also questionable, so this is a pretty big injury to discuss, because if Steven Adams is out, that will definitely give us some potential value in a guy like Jackson Hayes. And then Kyra Lewis is doubtful, which I think actually impacts a decent amount, because Kyra Lewis was getting pretty solid minutes off the bench. I think I think with Kyra Lewis out, with NAW out, that's definitely going to secure the minutes for Lonzo and Eric Bledsoe. I expect huge minutes for both Lonzo and Eric Bledsoe, regardless of if Zion and Ingram are in or out. So we will talk about them. But first off, you do have Zion and Ingram. You got Zion at 8,900, Brandon Ingram at 8,100. If they both play today, I think they're both decent options. I don't know if I'd really consider either one of them top plays for me, just because there are other guys I prefer, like in their price range. Like if Sabonis plays, I think I'd rather have Sabonis over Zion. But yeah, you could obviously look to Zion and Ingram. Never have a problem rostering them, when they're healthy. But if they're out again, love Lonzo Ball, love Eric Bledsoe. Lonzo, last game, his first game back from injury, was not limited at all, played 37 minutes. He had a huge game with both Zion and Ingram out, had 52 Draftkings points in that time, 27 points, 4 rebounds, 9 assists, 3 steals. Like, Lonzo is still a guy that can go out there and stuff the stat sheet. Obviously, playing alongside Ingram and Zion is, it's going to hurt his fantasy production overall, but we've still seen Lonzo be able to go out there and have big games when those guys are healthy. I think the NAW injury, like NAW being out today, I think that actually impacts more than you would think, just because NAW is a high usage player, and he's a guy that does get pretty big minutes off the bench. I really like Lonzo and Bledsoe. I think both these guys greatly benefit without NAW, just because they're going to play a ton of minutes, and obviously they look like top options if Zion and Ingram are out. I still have interest in both if Zion and Ingram play, but they would obviously become top plays for me if Zion and Ingram are out. For now, I'm just going to assume that Zion and Ingram are out again, just because, they haven't played in like 3 games, so I'm just going to assume they're out. If that's the case, love Lonzo, love Eric Bledsoe. But like even Eric Bledsoe, even if Zion and Ingram are in, I'd be fine going to Eric Bledsoe, especially like at his Yahoo price. He's super cheap over there, $19. I think NAW and Kyra Lewis both being, out today does secure the minutes for Eric Bledsoe. The minutes have kind of been all over the place this year for Eric Bledsoe. There's been times where he gets big minutes, then there's been some games where he only plays like 25 minutes. I'm expecting 35, 36 minutes from Eric Bledsoe tonight. And at 6,100, that definitely makes him viable. So love both those guys, especially if Zion and Ingram are out again. And if they're out again, James Johnson we can look to as well, 5,200. Played 33 minutes last game. He's been really productive these last 3 games with Zion out, starting in place of Zion. So I'd have a lot of interest in James Johnson if he were to start again. Now, Isaiah Thomas, newly acquired Isaiah Thomas, is going to be able to play today. He's not on the injury report, so he will make his Pelicans debut. We don't exactly know how many minutes he's going to play. My best guess is he probably plays like 15 to 20 minutes, but with him coming back or being on the team now, I don't think that affects too much today. I still expect big minutes for Lonzo, big minutes for Eric Bledsoe. Maybe you'll see maybe you'll see IT take Kyra Lewis's 20 minutes that he was getting. Those will probably go to Isaiah Thomas, but. Yeah, and then the Steven Adams injury, pretty impactful. If Steven Adams is out, I'm assuming Jackson Hayes will start in place of him. Jackson Hayes, been relatively productive this year when given the minutes. He did start last game alongside Steven Adams, played 29 minutes, had 27 DK points. If Steven Adams is out and Jackson Hayes were to start, I think Jackson Hayes would be a really good value play at 4,100. So there potentially could be a lot to like from this Pelicans team depending on how injuries shake out. Obviously the Zion and Ingram news is pretty big. It's definitely going to impact a lot, so we'll have to wait and see what happens with those guys. But moving on to the Atlanta side. So on Atlanta, not a ton in terms of injuries here. We know Collins, Hunter, Reddish remain out. Clint Capella is probable. He's expected to play, so I'm assuming he's going to be in. Trae Young, look, he burned me on the last slate. I played Trae Young. I'm sure a lot of you guys did as well. It was on Sunday's slate. It was like a 4-gamer. It was a really short slate. Trae Young, clearly looked like one of the top pay-up options on that slate, and he was terrible. 18 Draftkings points, only played 28 minutes. I don't want to let that scare me off of Trae Young here, just because this is such a good matchup against the Pelicans. This is a Pelicans team that plays fast. They don't play a ton of defense. I do like Trae Young here. I think he's going to be a lot lower owned than he probably should be in this matchup, especially because, he hasn't really been great lately. Like, we haven't seen more than 50 fantasy points from Trae Young, and it's been 10 straight games with less than 50 fantasy points for Trae Young. Maybe that scares some people off of him. We still know Trae Young has massive upside, especially in a fast-paced game like this, or at least a pace-up spot here for the Hawks. You couldn't ask for a better matchup for Trae Young, so I do like him at 9,100. Now, Clint Capella, 8,600. I still have some interest in just because he's been so good without John Collins these last few games. He's playing big minutes. 8,600 feels like a lot for Clint Capella, but we know that he has the upside when he gets the minutes, and if they're going to keep playing him 32, 34 minutes a night, especially in a good matchup like this against New Orleans, I do have some interest in Clint Capella. Bogdan was another guy that burned me last slate. Played 33 minutes. The minutes were there, but he only had 25 DK points. I think he's still viable. His price did come down to 6,200. He's not like a top option for me, though, just because we do have so many more games today. There's just a lot more options, but I still do like Bogdan. I think those three guys, Trae Young, Capella, Bogdan, are the three guys I'm really looking to on Atlanta. Will mention Kevin Huerter just because he did start last game, and he actually was pretty solid, 24 DK points in 28 minutes. If he were to start again, you could go to Kevin Huerter at 4,900, but I think that does it for this Hawks game. So moving on to the next one, Philly and Boston. Now, this is a game that should be great to watch, should be a close game, but I don't see a ton in terms of DFS appeal that I really have here. If I was going to play anyone on the Sixers today, it would be Joel Embiid. I don't have much interest in Tobias Harris or Ben Simmons at their price points. Embiid at 10,200 I think is clearly a guy you can pay up for. But on this slate, I think there are other studs I'd rather get to. Like, I'd rather have Giannis against the Warriors. So don't see a ton from Philly outside of maybe Embiid that I would look to. On the Boston side, I mean, there really isn't much I like here either. Robert Williams had a really big game last game, but this is a much tougher matchup against the Sixers, or it was against Houston. He had a really big game, 20 points, 9 rebounds, 8 assists. He nearly had a triple-double, 49 DK points for Robert Williams. I mean, we know Robert Williams is a very productive player when he's on the floor. He's a guy that, is going to average probably 1.2, 1.3 fantasy points per minute. But in a matchup against Embiid, I don't think Robert Williams is someone I'm really going to be going to. Tatum, Brown, Kimba, I just don't have that much interest in on this slate. Overall, this is not a game that I think is really that appealing for DFS. Should be a great real-life game, but not much for DFS. So moving on to the next one, the Lakers and the Raptors. So on the Lakers side, we know LeBron, AD are both going to remain out. Andre Drummond, listed as questionable. This will be something to monitor. In his first game with the Lakers, he did play 14 minutes before getting injured. He was not very productive in that time. We don't exactly know if Drummond, if he were to play today, what his minutes would look like. For now, this is just a wait and see. On Drummond, he is very affordable, though, at 6,500. If we're going to get full minutes from Drummond at this price point, I mean, he'd be a top play. I just don't know if that's going to happen, and we don't have that news right now, so that's a wait and see. Dennis Schroeder, Kyle Kuzma, I think, do look pretty appealing here, especially if Drummond were to sit. Same with Montrezl Harrell. I'd like Montrezl Harrell a good amount if Drummond were to sit. Did play 27 minutes last game with Drummond out, had 33 DK points. Basically got back to his normal role of playing, 28, 30 minutes off the bench. If Drummond were to sit, again, I assume we get probably 28, 30 minutes from Harrell off the bench. So Harrell, Kuzma, Schroeder, I have some interest in, especially if Drummond sits. If Drummond plays, obviously I wouldn't have any interest in Harrell. Drummond himself could definitely be viable depending on what his minutes look like. Kuzma, Schroeder would both be viable still if Drummond plays. I don't know if there's really any core options from this Lakers team for me unless Drummond gets normal minutes here. But outside of that, I think we can go ahead and move on to the Toronto side. So on Toronto, a lot to talk about here. So Fred VanVleet was questionable for Monday night's game against the Wizards. He did not wind up playing. We don't know yet what his status is for this game. It's a back-to-back for Toronto. For now, I'm just going to assume that Fred VanVleet remains out, and if that's the case, one of the biggest beneficiaries, and we saw that in Monday night's game, was Malachi Flynn. Now, Malachi Flynn was originally listed as a starter, but then they changed the starting lineup, moved DeAndre Bembry in there, so DeAndre Bembry actually started in place of VanVleet, but Malachi Flynn did have a huge game off the bench. He still played really, really well, got a ton of minutes. He finished with, let me pull it up real quick, finished with 47 fantasy points in 34 minutes, had 16 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, 4 steals, and 3 blocks. Just a massive game from Flynn. I mean, he's been really productive these last 2 games without Fred VanVleet. VanVleet did play in that game against Golden State, but he got injured halfway through. Flynn, in that game, played 30.5 minutes, 33 fantasy points. He's been really productive, lately without Lowry, without VanVleet. If VanVleet remains out, I think Malachi Flynn is probably, once again, one of the best value plays, regardless of if he starts or comes off the bench. He has shown that he can be productive with Lowry and VanVleet off the floor. So assuming that VanVleet remains out, I love Malachi Flynn once again. I don't care if he goes to the bench. We clearly saw that he's going to get the minutes regardless, even if he starts or comes off the bench. But VanVleet's out again. I think DeAndre Bembry would also look like a really good value play. He had a really good game in Monday night's game. He started, played pretty big minutes. I think he finished with 35 minutes. Let me check this real quick. Let's see if I can find. I didn't mean to click on Hamidou Diallo. So Bembry in Monday night's game started, played 30 minutes, had 36 fantasy points, 15 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, 1 block, 1 steal. We've seen Bembry make spot starts this year for Toronto. Whenever Lowry was out, we know Bembry started in place of Lowry. But I think Lowry and VanVleet both being out, that does impact Bembry a good amount. Like, you're just getting two high usage guards off the floor. That's going to allow Bembry to have the ball in his hands more. It's just going to allow him to be more productive. So, yeah, I mean, I really like DeAndre Bembry as well. I think he's a really good value play at 3K if he starts again for Van Vliet. And then obviously Siakam, OG, Gary Trent would all look like really good options as well. Siakam, I don't think he had that great of a game, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, he only had 38 fantasy points in 36 minutes, but I would like Siakam once again. I played him Monday night. Very likely that I would be back on him for Tuesday's slate if Van Vliet remains out. OG as well would definitely look to play 38 minutes. He was not productive at all, but I would expect OG to be more productive if Van Vliet were to sit. Gary Trent, he had a pretty bad game, but he's going to get big minutes. He did start to catch a little heat towards the late part of the game, but he played 31 minutes, had 21 fantasy points. Trent, OG, Siakam, these guys would all be viable if Van Vliet remains out. And then, the value plays, DeAndre Bembry, Malachi Flynn would both look like really good values if Van Vliet's out. So if Van Vliet's out, that's going to impact a lot. Now, if Van Vliet plays, obviously I'm going to, not really have interest in Flynn. I'm not going to be interested in Bembry. That would definitely lower my interest in Siakam, OG, and Trent. But I think Siakam would still be viable, especially because we know Kyle Lowry remains out. But yeah, I'm really just hoping that Van Vliet's out again because I do like a lot of these Raptors guys, if he winds up sitting again. But moving on to the next game, Memphis and Miami. On Memphis here, I don't see a ton I really like on the Memphis side. Joe Val, John Morant, I don't think I'm going to really go to them on this slate. They both feel pretty reasonably priced, if not a little bit too cheap, but don't think I can get there. D'Anthony Melton's out, so maybe we could go to a guy like Grayson Allen. With Melton out, I do expect the minutes to be there for Grayson Allen. He's played 22 and 27 minutes the last two games, would probably get around 30 minutes today. 4,400, probably if I had to play any Grizzly today, it probably would be Grayson Allen at 4,400. But overall, I don't like this team that much. So moving on to the Miami side, looking at the Heat here, another team I just don't have a ton of interest in. Like Jimmy and Bam both feel appropriately priced. Jimmy with Oladipo in the mix now, I just don't know if this is going to be a guy that I want to pay 9K for, especially just a mediocre matchup like this against Memphis. Same could be said for Bam. Like, just neither one of these guys feel like guys I have to jam in today. Oladipo, same could be said for him. In his game so far with Miami, he's played 23, 30 minutes, just hasn't really been that productive. I don't want to pay 7K for Oladipo until I really see him be productive on this Miami team. So, yeah, I mean, this is probably one of my least appealing games on the slate, just not a game I really have any interest in at all. So, moving on to the next one, Detroit and Denver. This is another game I don't have a ton of interest in. On the Detroit side, Jeremy Grant, revenge game here against his former team, 6,900. Does feel like a pretty nice price tag for Jeremy Grant. He's been really bad lately, and that's one of the reasons you've seen the price tag come down. But can't remember what he finished with in Monday night's game. 23 minutes, only played 23 minutes because of the blowout. He was productive in that time, though, with 36 fantasy points. If I had to go to any Piston today, it would be Jeremy Grant. This is a back-to-back for the Pistons, so just keep an eye on this. Mason Plumlee, he did rest on Monday night, but I assume he's going to play here. Revenge game for him as well against his former team and against Jokic. If you want to go to Mason Plumlee, like, they're going to need his size out there against Jokic. I could see, using him in tournaments as a lower-owned option. But like Hamidou Diallo rested on their last back-to-back, he could maybe be out today. If Hamidou Diallo were to be out on the back-to-back, then a guy like Josh Jackson would look a lot more appealing. So, we'll have to wait and see who's in, who's out. Like, we don't exactly know if Plumlee's going to play again, or going to play here, or if he's going to be out again. I'm assuming he's going to play since he, rested Monday's game. But obviously, if Plumlee were to be out again, would love Isaiah Stewart for 4,200. So, yeah, we got to wait and see who's in, who's out for this Pistons team. If Plumlee plays, then, Plumlee himself becomes somewhat viable. Grant, I have some interest in tournaments. Both those guys you could look to in a revenge game. If Diallo were to sit on the back-to-back, I'd like Josh Jackson a little bit more. But overall, I don't think this is really a Detroit team I'm going to be, insanely exposed to. I don't expect to have a ton of exposure to this team overall. Maybe one guy. Doesn't feel like I'd be playing more than two Pistons on the slate, though, if that. So, moving on to the Denver side. Denver here, obviously this is a game, I forgot to mention it, but this is a game that has, massive blowout potential. Right now, Denver is favored. I don't even know if there's a line yet for this game. So, yeah, Denver is favored by 13.5. This is a game that could blow out, definitely. Jokic, though, if this game can stay close, I mean, he has massive upside here against Detroit. Detroit's been a team that, has been killed by bigs this year. We've seen bigs have, huge games against the Pistons. I'm pretty sure Jokic, they haven't played this year. I think they were supposed to play, and then the game got postponed. But yeah, Jokic, if this game can stay close, I think Jokic does have massive upside. Still would probably prefer Giannis over him, but you could go to Jokic. Overall, though, I don't really like much on this Denver team. Aaron Gordon is 6,300. I don't mind. He's been a little bit better lately. 39 minutes last game or against the Clippers, 40 DK points, and then last game against Orlando, 35 minutes or 39 DK points. Been a lot more productive lately. He got off to a really slow start with Denver in his first 2 games, but now that the minutes have fully ramped up for Aaron Gordon, he's been a lot more productive. I think when you factor in price, I would say Aaron Gordon's probably my favorite play from Denver, followed by Jokic. I think both those guys are viable for tournaments. I don't know if either one would be cash game plays for me. We have to wait and see what kind of news we get as the day goes on. But that price on Aaron Gordon definitely a little bit too low, especially if he's going to continue to get 36, 38 minutes a night. But moving on to the next game, Milwaukee and Golden State. So on Milwaukee today, Giannis missed their last game, but currently he's listed as probable, so he is expected back for today. And assuming Giannis does play, he is one of my favorite studs on this slate. 10,700 on DK, like him a lot. On Yahoo, pretty easy to get in over there as well, $55. Normally when Giannis is on a slate, he's normally always a guy I want to pay up for just because he's been so productive this year. Such a productive player overall when he's on the floor. A guy that we know can go out there and just stuff the stat sheet. He had that stretch where he was doing pretty bad, like 4 straight games, less than 50 fantasy points, but then he bounced back in a huge way against Portland. 72 DK points in 33 minutes. If this game can stay close here, not sure what the spread in this one is. Like the spread in this game is only 6.5, so I expect this. I would say I feel a lot more confident this game stays close than I do the Detroit-Denver game. So Giannis, if this game is close, we know he's going to play 34, 36 minutes. Fast-paced game, 2 relatively fast-paced teams here. Should be a lot of points scored. Giannis is definitely my favorite play from Milwaukee, and I don't really like anyone else on this team outside of Giannis. And normally when Giannis is available to play, he's normally the only guy I have interest in from the Bucks, which I think is the case today. But on the Warriors side, I do have some interest in some Warriors here. Steph Curry at 9,700, I do like a good amount as a pay-up option. Normally, I'm not a guy that really goes out of my way to play Curry, but in a fast-paced game like this, in a game that should stay close, I think Curry does have a ton of upside here. I could definitely see pairing him with Giannis in tournaments if you can find the salary to make that work. These are the type of games I do like to target Curry in. Just these big-time games that You expect to stay close with a 6.5 point spread. 2 fast-paced teams. Milwaukee has Drew Holiday, who is a really good defender, but you're not going to shut down Steph Curry. This guy's just so good, man. He can score on anybody. He's probably one of the best overall guards in this league. He's probably one of the top point guards overall. Definitely one of the best scorers we've ever seen. So love Steph Curry here for tournaments. I think in cash games, I'd rather get up to Giannis. I feel better about Giannis. I think Giannis just has a higher floor. But in tournaments, Curry definitely has plenty of upside. And this could be one of those nights where we see, a big 40-point, 60 DK point type game from Steph Curry, especially if his shot's falling. But outside of Curry, I think the only other guy I would be looking to would be Draymond Green. 6,700 on DK. Definitely feels too cheap for Draymond Green. In close games this year, he's been super productive. He's going to play 34, 36 minutes if this game stays close. You look at the game log, 34, 48, 44 DK points. Like, Draymond has upside for sure. It's just a matter of if the game can stay close and if he gets his full minutes. And I'm expecting it to stay close, which does make me like Draymond a good amount. So Draymond, Curry, I do like a good amount on this Warriors team, but I don't think I'm going to anyone else outside of those 2 guys. But finally talking about the last game on the night, Portland and the Clippers. So on Portland today, I think there's one guy that I'm really interested in here, and that is Enes Kanter. We do already know that Yusuf Nurkic has been ruled out for today. So basically, we're going to go back to getting probably 32, 34 minutes from Enes Kanter. He did play 30 minutes last game against OKC. Now, Nurkic lost a lot of minutes in that game due to blowout. Nurkic has also been on a minutes limit lately. But, we saw before Nurkic returned, before Nurkic was able to come back, we were getting 30, 32 minutes a night from Kanter. That Brooklyn game, he played 39 minutes. I expect with Nurkic out today that we get 30-plus minutes from Enes Kanter. And, this is a guy that should be priced around $7K when he's playing 30-plus minutes a night. Definitely not priced appropriately here for Nurkic being out. Draftkings did not adjust the price tag for Nurkic being out today. So Enes Kanter at 6K, I do like a lot. Definitely one of my favorite center plays right now. And on Yahoo, the price tag over there, also too low in my opinion, only $19. Really like Kanter here with Nurkic out. But outside of Kanter, I don't see too much else I like on the Blazers outside of Kanter. Lillard, McCollum, don't see either one being top options for me. They're both good tournament plays, but not really guys I'd be getting to, in my optimal lineup or in my one lineup. So we can move on to the Clippers side. With the Clippers, I think for me on this team, it's probably just Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. You know, Ivica Zubac, his price has come down to 5,400, but, you know, he's been losing minutes lately. He did play 31 last game, 29 the game before that. The production, though, hasn't been as good as we saw, you know, before. I think with Kawhi and PG both playing, you know, that's definitely taking production away from Ivica Zubac, but the matchup is good here against Portland. Kanter is really not that good of a defender, so don't mind Zubac, but I think that, you know, the clear top options from this Clippers team are Kawhi and Paul George. Again, I don't know if either one of these guys, you know, would be guys that I'd really be building around on this slate. Like, I think I'd rather have Curry over Kawhi. I think there's, you know, other guys in the 8K range I'd rather have over Paul George. But if I had to play any Clippers today, it would be, you know, one of those two guys or Ivica Zubac. Overall, though, a lot of my interest in this game is coming from, you know, the Portland side with a guy like Enes Kanter, who I think is definitely too cheap today. But, yeah, that does it for all 8 games today, guys. Broke everything down team by team. I hope you guys did enjoy this video. I do appreciate you watching. If you enjoyed, hit that like button down below. Hit that subscribe button as well. Be sure to click the notification bell so that way you do get notified every time I upload, and you also get notified every time I do go live. But yeah, good luck tonight, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video. Peace.